Hi there, and welcome to my next painting session. I'm so glad you joined me today. Today, I'm going to show you how I created a mixed media piece on heavy mixed media paper with some collage papers, paints, stamps, stencils. I've got it all. So I'm starting off with some basic collage papers, and I'm trying to stick to a generally neutral palette with these papers because I want to use some oranges and possibly blues today, so I don't want too many colors going on at the same time. So just putting the papers down with some satin medium. I don't like to use gloss on the first layer because then it gets very shiny, and photographing it can get a little tricky when it's real shiny. So I'm just using some Liquitex satin medium to get it all down on the paper. And I'm being kind of generous with it because I don't want anything kind of buckling or curling up, and using a lot of medium in that first layer is helpful, especially when you use papers that do not absorb water very well. So that medium can create a nice barrier in between the paper and any other kind of material you use on top, whether it's ink or paint, stamps, whatever it is. So I'm just putting a generous coat on top before I put any paint on to give it that layer in between. As you can see here, I'm using my palette knife just to create some color on top, just kind of painting with the palette knife, creating a little texture and some interesting viewpoints. I'm using some orange, cadmium orange with gesso, and also some Naples yellow hue with some gesso. And then this other lovely blue color is aquamarine blue with some gesso as well. I like to use gesso because it kind of adds a little tooth and it's not quite as diluting, I should say, with paints. So it kind of gives a little bit more of a cloudy, dreamy look for me. So this is just some basic white gesso I'm getting on the paper. At this point, I'm not really thinking too much about what I'm doing. I'm just painting and having fun and not really worrying about how it's going to turn out, because that can kind of get in the way of my process. And I think for anyone as well, you don't want to think too hard about how it turns out because every mixed media piece goes through so many different iterations. So now I'm just adding some drips and just seeing where they go. I did let it dry a little in between the drips and putting this stencil down because I didn't want to get it too muddy. So this is just a gray I mixed with a little white to kind of create a little bit of a pattern, bringing out some objects from the background now because it's starting to get a little monotone. That's one of the things that I tend to do is I create quite a monotone background and then I have to bring things out just to identify different areas. So this is just a big stamp that I recently got. I was just kind of stamping it around. Has some lettering, writing on it. And then now I'm going in with some, again, some satin medium and just using some of my jelly plate prints that I made, kind of handmade collage papers. So this one I made with some fluorescent pink and I made it on my jelly plate. And then this piece of paper, this is all on deli paper, so it kind of is translucent. This is like a salmon pink. And this, what I'm using here is Distress Stain. It is from the Jim Holtz line and kind of creates like a vintagey look. It's like a brownish color and it's kind of just like ink that you can dab on. It has a dabber on top of it. So it's really handy just to kind of apply with stencils. But it does get a little liquidy, so you want to be careful when you're applying. I definitely dabbed it with a paper towel to kind of get the excess off, just so it didn't run all over. And then I'm just going back through with a little more of that Naples yellow with white, just to accentuate that stencil. Give it another layer. It's always a process of editing and adding and subtracting and just kind of having fun. You have to remember to have fun while doing this so that it doesn't get to be too precious or too stressful, because every piece of work goes through that ugly phase. And I feel like we're kind of in the middle of mine right now. It's like, where is this going? So I'm just adding some more papers, different colors. I kind of wanted to add in some more pink to here. And then now I'm using a liquid titanium white acrylic, just letting it drip, seeing where it goes. That creates an interesting view. And then this is the butterfly I wanted to use. I printed this on my inkjet printer. It's a copyright-free image that I just found on the internet, and I put it on deli paper, and I'm just putting it down with some satin medium. Again, you have to be careful when using any inkjet prints because they will run. So now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out a border around the butterfly, but I didn't want to do it freehand because I didn't want to get into the drips or right on the butterfly because it's kind of a funny shape. So what I did was I drew a circle on some deli paper around the butterfly, and then I traced that onto a different piece of deli paper with that aquamarine color Posca paint pen. So it kind of was a foolproof way to create a little border around that butterfly. And now I'm just kind of starting to add in my little edits that I do at the end. I like to add in some marks with different colors and just kind of create a little more interest to bring out some of the background to the front. So here I'm using the Caran d'Ache crayons, and they look like a crayon when you use them, and then if you add a little water, they become more like watercolors. Really versatile and easy to use, and they just can add a pop of color wherever you want in whatever shape you want. So here I'm going in with my Posca paint pen, my white one, and just kind of bringing out some of the shapes in the background. And I always kind of touch it a little to soften it because those lines can be very crisp and clear. And I don't want it to sit on top of the piece. I want it to just kind of blend in. Just adding in some marks. And then my final part is the sentiment. I always think of wonder when I see butterflies. And there it is, my final piece. All the little different details. Really had so much fun making this one. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I would love to create more content that you enjoy watching. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.